Okay, now we're in chapter 7. We're going to be talking about uh, the efficiency feature of the market equilibrium. That's why I picked chapter 7 as the one after chapter 4, in which we studied market equilibrium, which is the intersection point between the demand and supply. So, here to start with, first we study two approaches of analysis. The first one is positive analysis, which is to describe what is happening, what it is, basically, and normative analysis, which is to prescribe what should happen. So, normative analysis involves value judges. It's more subjective, whereas positive analysis is more of a description of what is going on. So, positive analysis is more objective. It is easy to confuse these two. My key is to understand this through the word norm. So as we say a norm, it means what we are supposed to do, right? For instance, a social norm, then we should follow a certain social routine. So a normative analysis is to create such a norm, namely making a suggestion on what should be done. And the other one is what it is, which is positive analysis. So, for instance, in regards to minimum wage, positive analysis could cast question like, what are the consequences of raising minimum wage? And then look into the number of people who will get a pay raise, how much their pay will increase, how business profitability will change, how many jobs employers will eliminate due to high wages. So all those are more of a objective, right? And a passive consequence of uh say raising minimum wage. So we didn't add any manual factitious interference to that. But look at normative analysis. The question is, should minimum wage be raised or not? Is the policy worth enacting? And here we may have to ask those questions like, do the gains to some people outweigh the losses to others? So the thing is, normative analysis is it is your turn to make the judgment, to determine, right? To make the call of what it should be done. So that is dependent on you. From which aspect do you understand this? Right? Which say political leniency that you are. There is a certain like uh, value preference that you attach to certain way of operating the the the, the society, right? So that one is more dependent on you, more subjective. Positive analysis is if we do this, then what will happen passively? It doesn't change per person. No matter who analyze this, ideally it should be the same consequence if you're doing positive analysis. Okay, so that's the difference. And then we use those analysis to analyze efficiency, okay, which is a way to evaluate policies and rules. So first, we need to figure out how to evaluate people's welfare. And that is, in most of the cases, a target, right? So that is people's happiness, well-being, or prosperity. And economic efficiency is an outcome that is economic efficient if it yields more economic surplus. And economic surplus is a total benefit minus total cost flowing from a decision. So this is more of a market version of welfare. Okay. So the efficiency outcome yields the largest possible economic surplus, namely the economic pie is enlarged to its biggest extent. In that case, the economy is making bigger, and then people are more likely to enjoy a more prosperous life. Okay, so we're gonna revisit this later. But here there is a constant philosophical argument between efficiency and equity. So economic efficiency merely assess whether economic surplus rises overall, but sometimes it could be some people gets richer first, and if it is a small proportion of people gets very rich first, right? And then majority of people are left poor, then possibly the average wealth increases, the total economic pie expands, but not so many people enjoys that. So in that regard, equity is also important to make sure that the majority of people can enjoy the gain of the economic pie. So efficiency outcome holds the potential to make everybody better off, but not necessarily. And here then we need to think about equity as well, which is a measure of fairness. Again, is the growth of the economic pie being enjoyed by the majority of people? So those are the fundamental definitions that we are looking into, that we are studying before really stepping into efficiency. So as we said, efficiency is measured by economic surplus. So how do we find economic surplus? Let's look at consumer surplus first. Since the market is separated into two parts, the consumer part or the demand part, and the suppliers part or the sellers part, right? So total surplus is also comprised of these two, which is consumer surplus and producer surplus. Consumer surplus is the economic surplus you get from buying something. That is the marginal benefit of the consumer minus the price. So basically, it evaluates how good this deal is to you. For instance, if you want to pay $100 for a bottle of water, say you're very thirsty, almost dead, and at that time you would like to pay everything to get that bottle of water, and you dash to a market and find it's only sold by $5 to you. It's like, what a steal, right? What a great deal. And that is consumer surplus. You're willing to pay 100, it's only $5. And by making this transaction, it's as if you saved $95. So consumer surplus here captures, or reflects the joy that you get as a consumer from this transaction. Okay, so yeah, it uses a similar example. And in the graph, what we found is the total consumer surplus in the market is the upper triangle. Recall that the demand curve does also stand for the marginal benefit, right? And here is a market price. So a consumer here is willing to accept the $3, and they found the market price is only 1.29. A consumer here is willing to pay $2, and again the market price is 1.29, and we will have those many consumers buying until unit 10, because any consumer to the right of unit 10 million, they are willing to pay less than 1.29, and they found the market price being 1.29. So what they are going to do is they are not going to buy it, right? So here, all the transactions will keep going until where the price meets the demand or intersects with the demand curve. Okay, so this upper triangle that captures all the difference, all the consumer surplus from each single transaction. Okay, the producer surplus is similar. Producer surplus now depicts how good this deal is to the seller, right? So for instance, if this seller, if it costs this seller $25 to produce this product in question, and you got offered $35 to do so, to you is as if you make extra profit, which is 35 minus 25. That tells you how good this deal is. And again, let's look at this example. So if you're a consumer, if you just, I'm sorry, if a producer just producing the first unit, it's very easy to produce. $10 is the cost. And you found the market price being 50, you're happy to do so. Say you keep producing as we discussed previously in chapter 3, increasing marginal cost, right? Eventually, it's going to become more and more difficult to do that, like if you are continuously doing your push-ups. Eventually, the cost is the marginal cost is increasing for the producers, right? At 100 units, it's $35 per each product, but still the market price is 50. You still make $15 difference from this transaction. You're gonna keep going until 200, where the price line crosses the supply curve. Again, if you produce somewhere higher than this $200, what happens is, because of increasing marginal cost, your marginal cost will be higher than 50. That means to produce each pair of jeans, the cost now is higher than 50, but in the market, people are only willing to pay 50. Then why do you do that? If you do that, you suffer loss, so it's not worth doing, right? Therefore, all the productions will keep going until 200 units, right? And all the red triangle captures the transaction of each single the benefit, how good this deal is to the producer from each single transaction, from here to here to here to here to here. Okay, so that's the idea of producer surplus. And last one is voluntary exchange. Buyers and sellers exchange money for goods only if they both want to. That is to say, when the price is higher than the marginal cost of the producer, right? The revenue should be at least good enough to cover my cost. And the price should be lower than the consumer's marginal benefit, right? I would like to pay $200, and then this good cannot be higher than $200 for me to buy it. So that is the idea of voluntary exchange. And that's why the price, the market equilibrium price, is in between the demand and supply, right? And it separates the total surplus, the social welfare, into two parts. The upper part is the consumer surplus, the lower part is the producer surplus. So this one sets the foundation for later understanding, for later study of market efficiency. So here we have studied how to measure the surplus on each side of the market so as to evaluate how good the deal is to each of them, namely the happiness for each of the two parties from the market transaction. So that is defined as the surplus, and the entirety is actually also telling you how big the economic pie is.